All these concepts were born by people who know what is happening in this world. My beloved mother, our beloved mother, she always said, I never thought that in my life I would be able to touch the big ice and leave an imprint on my hand, on that ice. It had become so soft, but it was melting. When you put your hand into the ice, within a minute, you can see the whole imprint of your hand. That's how soft the big ice has become in those days. That was 50 years ago. Now, it's just melting. Now you can't even put your hand on it and imprint is not there, it just melts away. That's how severely it is. And when you think of it, it is the biggest ice in the northern hemisphere of Mother Earth. And it was more than 5 kilometers on the average when I was born. Now it's about 2 kilometers only. And that ice is bigger than Lower Europe. So when you think of it, the impact means that enormous ice has become water. And it's on the ocean, in the ocean. But the water is so cold, it just stays compact. And it moves slowly. But as the water becomes warmer, just like when you make a cup of tea, it will begin to expand. And as it expands and becomes to the boiling point, it will begin to create tsunamis. We call it bubbles, water bubbling, because it's boiling. But in a big world, as we know it, as water becomes warmer, it will expand. And as it gets more warmer, then it will begin to bubble. Those are the ones we call the tsunamis. The water will probably not boil, but it will literally expand. And scientifically, they have now figured out that with 1 Celsius, the ocean becoming warmer, it will literally physically expand more than 2 meters, which endangers where you and I are right now, in Berlin. Because Berlin is no more than 2 meters on the level of the ocean. That's 1 Celsius. And then look at the Western Europe, in which Germany is part of. That beautiful little country called Denmark. The highest mountain is 130 meters. And that's it. The rest will just disappear. Is that really fear-mongering of what saying? No, it's in an effort to create hope. Because there has to be hope. We cannot just let Holland drown. That's 16 million people. We cannot let Belgium die, because that's 10 million people. We cannot do that. Paris, in the surrounding Paris, that's 21 million people. We cannot just let them drown. We can't. We have that responsibility to help each other. But most of them don't listen. They have no concept of what's happening. Or they are in a denial that they don't talk about it. And we can see that on a world scale. Everybody now talks about climate change, but nobody talks about you. What's going to happen to you? What will happen to these beautiful people? Because sooner or later, it literally will happen. So the old people want you and I to create hope. What does hope mean? To be able to see the reality of what is and do something about it in such a way that we can have a life. My grandmother says that many will die. And I think, wow, many will die. We are 7.5 billion of us on earth. But many will die. Many will barely survive. Few will have a life. So I ask that question often, where do you want to belong? Those who will die, those who will barely survive, or those who have life? Where would you like to be? Which one do you want to belong to? That's all. My hope is that you will want to belong to those who will have a life. Why? My grandmother described it that when that big river will come, whatever that means. When that comes, many will be swept away by the water. And we saw that just last week in Italy. There was just all this rain coming down, and it just swept away houses, cars, and people. And there was nothing anybody could do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They could do nothing. It just mud just slided away houses and furnitures and belongings, the history of man, and their cars, their autos, and the people themselves. And nobody could do anything. So my grandmother says long ago that big river will come. When she comes, don't you dare jumping in to save your family. My grandmother, my beloved grandmother, she does not want me to jump into the river to save you. She said, if you do, if I do, me too, I will become the food of the river. Isn't it scary? Because in my family, I have 5 grandkids. I would do everything in my world to save them. But my grandmother says, don't do that. Learn to say thank you for having been a gift for you. And wish them well. Then run up the mountain. But the world which is coming up from the big river needs you. Not as a food for the river, but as one who can create life. I often, particularly when I was younger, I would pray to the Great One, don't you ever dare that happen to me. I still say that. I still tell God, don't you ever let it happen to me. Because I'm a weak person. I love my grandkids. I will jump. But also I know that if I do, me too, I will become the food of the river. And it was really interesting. I don't know if you remember the big tsunami in Japan 5 years ago or so. BBC found a man who told a story how all of a sudden the big river came. And then he saw his mom and dad yelling and screaming for help. They were being swept by this big river. He looked at them, then he heard his wife and kids just on the other side, just yelling and screaming, help, help, help. And then he sees his brother and his wife and her kids also yelling and screaming. And then he can see the wall of the river coming. And he said it just so calmly with a beautiful spirit. And he says, there was nothing I could do. What I managed to do is tell them how much I love them. What a gift they have been to me. And I wish them well. Then I started running. And he said, I ran and ran until I collapsed, expecting that the big river would come and pick me up. But the big river didn't come, because the tsunami had started to recede. And in the story, he touched his heart. Can you imagine to have that kind of strength? That man truly is a hope. That's what it means to create hope. Would it be that severe? Nobody really knows. But we know scientifically that the water will literally expand itself 2.1 meters for 1 Celsius. That means 1 meters and 5 centimeters, 1.5 meters. No, it's 1.05 meters for half a Celsius ocean becoming warmer. That it literally will grow more than a meter. Literally just expand itself. But that's the science. This is what happens with water when it becomes warmer. But of course, once it does, that means that the waves will become even bigger. Because there will be winds, and there's a current which create the waves. And the waves, as they become stronger, they will begin to eat the sand, which is all of Northern Europe, up to Scandinavia. It's just mere sand. The English coast, the Western Europe, it's all sand. There's no solid rock until we reach down to Pyrenees. There's no solid mass of rocks in those areas. And that's how many millions of people? Probably close to 90 million people live in that region. That's 90. That's the amount of people living in Germany. Then of course the Baltic Sea, that too will expand. That means southern Scandinavia and the Baltic lands, the beautiful city of St. Petersburg, it will be underwater. Is it really true that it will be so? Yes, it is, because the ice has already melted. 3 kilometers. Already 3 kilometers has melted and become part of the ocean. But oblivious we are. At the United Nations level, they don't talk about you. In the government level of EU or Germany, they don't talk about you. But it's too much to talk about. It's too scary. So people will say that, oh, you're scaremongering. I wish I did, but I'm not. All I wanted is just to create that opportunity for any one of us to become a hope. We cannot stop the water to come, but we can do something so we can have life. That's the hope. You guys are young. You should be the hope for generations to come. Which means that you have to become aware and present here, aware in here. It's called consciousness with spirituality. You and I be conscious about our reality, but consciousness had to also have the wing. Consciousness of this part of my body, and then my consciousness of spiritual understanding, it had to be like the wings of a bird, like an eagle. My left side, which is my spiritual side, my body, which is my right side, far away from my heart. It had to be like an eagle. I had to be able to put my consciousness on a higher level, spiritually as well, not just physically, but spiritually. It had to be like the bird, like that amazing eagle. If not, we can save the body. We probably can save many bodies, but without the spiritual understanding of the significance of it, we will just barely survive. Is that really real? I think about it a lot. I see myself as I'm aging, realizing that I talked to millions of people. And when I say millions, I mean millions of people I talk to. Nobody changed. I quit my job at United Nations. I stopped being an elder for them. because nobody changed. Leadership changed, but the kind of leadership, they just carry on the same policies. Nobody ever talks about you. Nobody talks about these young people. Nobody talks about these old people. Nobody talks about the structures of building. Nobody. But the reality is that the water is not coming. Will it happen tomorrow? Probably the day after. But mind you, spiritual term, there's no clock. It's only in Switzerland we have clocks. You know, they invented that thing. But spiritual terms is a very different concept of time. So will that come today or tomorrow? Probably tomorrow. But how long will it last before that tomorrow comes? Nobody really knows. But we know already that the big ice of Greenland is melting so fast that the big pressure or the weight of the big ice going away are literally making mountains grow. Can you imagine? Mountains are literally physically growing every year because there's no more pressure on the big ice. How can it happen? The weight of the ice is so big that it held Earth down. But all of a sudden that melted away in the course of a week. When that happened, my people were running up the mountain to be the first one to step on land nobody has ever stepped on. That's the beautiful thing about it. But the end result of it is that oceans are rising. And you and I, we live here, pretty close to the ocean. Are there any hopes in here? Nobody. But nobody talks about you, and what kind of life you will have. It's like, oh yeah, today everything is closed, tomorrow the shops will be open, office will be open, so that's what we worry about. We don't worry about the life you will have. If you can create hope that they can worry about how we're going to be in the future. Should we lose all the technology we have? No, I hope not. I hope that we can create even better technology because we will need it. The old people say, you and I, we know so much, but comprehend so little. Can you imagine that all of us say we know so much, but comprehend little of what we know? Because there is no hope. But nobody in the government level of Germany are talking about that. We have to create some hope for our people, for our country. Nobody ever mentioned you. So, am I the good one to talk about it? Probably not, because I have no education. But what I know the story. I grew up with it. And I'm the carrier of that story. So it is my duty as a runner for the elders to tell the story, not to create fear, but create hope. But we cannot become hope unless we become consciously aware, both physically and spiritually. That's only when a hope can be born. Train them, talk to them, make them become aware. The time of ignorance has passed. It should have passed a long time ago. But out of the 400 million Europeans, way too many are absolutely ignorant of what's happening, and they don't want to look at what's happening. They want to live in that little world in which everything is each a Sunday, so we can take a walk in the park, and then the sun is shining, and that's it. Tomorrow we go back to work, and then we'll be stuck in the Stau of Berlin, for hours, and then that's all their world. That means that world is that big, but the world is enormous. But all of it is being afflicted. Every part of it. That means 7.5 billion of us are being afflicted. And the old people say that many will die. Many will barely survive. And few will have a life. So, it's your duty. As you become consciously aware and spiritually becoming completely aware, it's our duty to create the hope. Those people will remain ignorant. Although the time of ignorance has passed long ago, they remain ignorant. They don't want to know. I know that, Lord. I traveled to 68 countries and thousands of cities. Literally thousands of cities. And I talk to people. I meet with the elders. I have dinner cooked for me by grandmothers. So I've been there. I don't just live in a hotel. I go and talk to the people. So I know what they say. And as a runner, I have to tell them. I cannot code it with the nice words and the nice things, the river will rise, the ocean will rise, and I can't do that. If I really want to have an impact, I'm going to have to talk straight. I'm going to sugarcoat it. Because if I do, I'm no different than anybody else. I don't want to be different, but I have a responsibility. I am a runner for the elders.